Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Oliver, male 23, and I, female 23, met in a small conservative town that we used to live in. We first started off as friends when we first met at a Christmas dinner that both of our families were invited to by a family friend. Well, for us, it was a family friend, and for Oliver, it was his uncle's place. There wasn't really anyone else at the dinner of my age because his children had left the country for education purposes, so I was left to hang out with Oliver, which I did. Oliver initially came off to me as very shy and awkward, but within a couple of hours he bloomed and opened up to me. That is when I fell in love with him and his humor. We exchanged numbers the very same day and just knew we had a different connection, not just a friendly one. We didn't want to rush it though, so we started off as friends. We spent almost the entire winter break together. We introduced each other to our friends and families and were a hit. It was like everyone was just waiting for us to get together. I was on top of the moon. Things seemed to have only gotten better from there onwards. I mean, we were in a long distance relationship when the break ended somehow. It worked out amazingly well, even though we would only meet each other once or twice a month. But of course, no relationship is perfect, and I would gladly accept that about the relationship between Oliver and I. However, being an enthusiastic teen with a lot of hope beaming in my eyes, and with all the romance shows and movies, I was determined to work through everything. Even the red flags, which started coming from the moment where Oliver would never be available at nights. No matter what day it was, 7 p.m., and boom, he'd be gone. His phone would be on voicemail from there on, and he would give the excuse of him being busy with studies. Well, that would make sense because he was pursuing a difficult degree. I blindly believed his excuse until this happened, and I became suspicious. You see, our college had given us a couple of days off as they were holding some sort of fest. I saw this as an amazing opportunity to go surprise Oliver, so I packed a small bag and drove myself over to the apartment that he shared with his flatmate and his best friend, Miller, who I had contacted beforehand to get a thumb up from. Well, now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense if Miller had given me that thumbs up to drop a hint to run, but obviously, once again, I was blind to all the red flags. So, this is what happened. I reached over to his apartment and first called Oliver. His phone went to voicemail, and so I just knocked on the door and was greeted by none other than Samara, who was Oliver's ex. I was dumbfounded, and so was she. And now that I think about it, Oliver's face had turned white as if he saw a ghost, but was able to explain the situation to both Samara and I in such a way that we both somehow got convinced. But things just went downhill from there. It was the third year of college, towards the end of it, when Oliver sat me down to inform me that he had failed almost all his classes that semester, which caused him to get a drop. He said he wanted to take a semester off from university to think about what he actually wants to do. I thought that was completely understandable because at that time he had informed me that this moratorium would be supported by his parents. But oh boy, was I misled. Initially, his parents did support him, providing him financial support, but that soon died out as his dad lost his job, causing me to take over. I was now looking after not only myself, but him as well. He had moved into my place, and we were back in small town we met in previously. Things didn't seem exhausting at the beginning because of the false enthusiasm I used to get from my parents and his, calling me strong and brave until this one semester worth of break turned into an entire year and I started to realize that something was very wrong. I had started getting fed up with Oliver and his false promises until one day I started finding my money disappearing. I knew it was Oliver because there was literally no one else living in our house except for the two of us. So after some snooping around, I found out he was having a whole affair with none other than Samara. I knew I had enough of his BS and I kicked him out of the house. He seemed so unfazed by this entire situation, and so did his family. It was like as if they wanted all of this to happen. He moved in with Samara, and I started to try to move on. It's been a year since everything happened. I hadn't been in contact with anyone from Oliver's side. It was all until a week back that my phone randomly started blowing up by Oliver and his family, all telling me how Oliver misses me, how they can't believe I broke up with him, and how we should get back together. I received hundreds of messages within the span of one day. I was shocked and confused, but was able to ignore them by threatening to block them. Then they all started showing up at my place. That is when I put my feet down and threatened legal action, which seemed to get things to stop. But little did I know, it was all just the silence before the storm. It all started yesterday. It was a regular evening, and I turned on the TV to watch some local news. That is when I heard Oliver's name followed by the reporter explaining how he had been waiting outside a branch of my company along with his family with a sign that said, "Please take me back. OP, I can't believe you're breaking up with me for real." I was shocked because his family was there as well, with photos of us in their hands. What left me dumbfounded was the fact that he was waiting outside the branch where I didn't even work. I knew I had enough and called Oliver up. He sounded cheerful as he picked up my call. I guess he thought that I was going to take him back or something, but I threatened him with legal action. He said he wasn't going to give up until he got me back. I was lost, not sure what to do. I still am, honestly. I called up my dad immediately, who started berating me, telling me that I was the cause behind all of this. It was because of me that his business would have to struggle now since his clients would obviously talk about it. This was followed by more yelling from my mom and messages from my siblings expressing their disappointment towards me. I was devastated. I still am. I completely shut down from there on and just shut off all my devices and have been thinking about what to do until the idea of posting here came up on my mind. So, Reddit, please bring in your opinions, suggestions, judgments. AITA? I knew I had to talk to someone and face this situation for once. I knew sitting with my devices off would do nothing but make me out to be the bad guy. The comments you all left me were truly eye opening to the fact that all of this situation that has been happening is harassment. But before anything, I decided to approach Miller. Remember Oliver's best friend and previous roommate? Yes, him. Miller lives in the same city as us, just a couple of hours away, and I know for a fact that being in the same friend group as Oliver, he must have gotten the news about everything happening and probably even more. So I decided to reach out to him on Facebook, where I got a response pretty quickly. We talked for a bit, and he knew what I had reached out for. So we have planned to meet today evening. As for my parents and Oliver's family, they all are still in a panic, especially over the fact that I have switched off my phone. I have been screenshotting everything for evidence, especially the threats of breaking into my house. I will update you all soon. You guys had predicted correctly. There is a lot more going on than just Oliver waiting outside my workplace with a banner, which him and his family were kicked out by my company's security. Well, the reason why my family was so stressed was not because of the impression that Oliver's behavior would leave on their business, but the fact that my dad had literally paid Oliver to plan for our wedding. Yes, after knowing everything he had done to me, my dad paid this scum of a man money because apparently he was going to convince me to marry him. Miller found this out when Oliver has been bragging about all the money he earned for his baby that Samara has been carrying. According to him, this is the money that he deserves for marrying an ugly girl like me. This was enough information for me, but I continued to hear him as he went on to say that Samara and Oliver has been on this plan ever since we started dating. The fact that my dad owned a business which made a lot of money was the sole purpose of him getting in a relationship with me. Ouch. I asked Miller if he would be willing to tell all of this to my dad. He happily agreed. God bless this man's heart. I truly owe him a lot. Well, we visited my parents' place that day itself and sat them down to explain them everything. I did all of this not because I wanted them on my side. I did this because I wanted to show them how much they had messed up and how done I was with them. That is what happened. The more Miller told them about the details of the situation, the worse their reaction got. It was like their reaction just kept screaming that they knew they messed up real bad, and by the end of it, they were begging for forgiveness, which I refused to give because why should I? I told them I was cutting all contact with them for a while, and if they tried to contact me, I would get a restraining order. They seemed shocked at my decision, but knew they had messed up, and so left me alone. I and Miller left their place, and I invited him over to mine to discuss what my next step should be. Hi all, sorry for the late update. I was busy dealing with the cops and other things. I wanted to provide a clean and neat update, which is why it took so long. Well, I decided to press charges for harassment and stalking, not just on Oliver, but also his family. With the overwhelming amount of proof, it was very easy to get the restraining orders, along with having them put them in jail. They aren't going to face a lot of jail time, but plenty of community service, which honestly I'm okay with. All I wanted was for all of them to face repercussions for their actions. Ever since all of this happened, though, Samara tried to gang up on me with her friends, which was reported to the cops as well, and after one warning call later, she became dead silent, and that's how things have been lately, quiet and peaceful. I have decided to transfer into another city, and my company, which was very considerate and kind throughout this entire ordeal, offered me a position with an even better pay in another city. And guess what? I will be living with Miller as my roommate there, who is just as tired of this conservative, low minded town. NTA, he's only back because he wants something from you. Don't budge. Go to the cops and get a restraining order. Also, let your company know about everything happening so they're in the loop. NTA, Oliver and his crazy family aside, what's up with your family? I would be more worried about them. TBH. I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of 4 years. We are beyond excited. His mom has always been a nightmare, but I'm not worried about it as he handles her. She got engaged a few months before we did to Chris. I somewhat know Chris as his ex-wife is one of my mom's best friends. I know just through their friendship that Chris never paid child support. They split when their son was 12, and he never gave her a dime, despite making very good money. Due to this, I've never respected Chris, but he has gotten worse in the past year due to an issue between him and my fiance. When we got engaged, I was showing everyone my ring, and he loudly asked mother-in-law what she would have said if he proposed with that ring. She gave him a look, but he kept going and was laughing about how she would have just walked out. Hers is much bigger and probably real diamond, where mine is lab diamond, which is what I wanted. I announced that Chris maybe shouldn't be spending so much on a ring when he must owe his ex a shit ton in unpaid child support, and don't men go to jail for that? He looked mortified, and obviously the family was curious. Mother-in-law snapped at me and they left. I thought it was over, but Chris's ex called me and chewed me out. She said she didn't want child support because she can take care of her own child and she believes men have rights as well, and Chris has begged her to abort. She was really rude about it and hung up on me. Again, I thought it was over, but Chris sent me a message that if I opened my stupid mouth again, he would sue for defamation. I took this very seriously as he is a lawyer. I told everyone I cannot be around Chris. I won't be going to their wedding. He can't come to ours, and I will not attend family events if he is there. Most of the family took my side and said they would stop inviting Chris. Now, this has blown up into mother-in-law saying she will never speak to any of us again. And girlfriend's father-in-law is backing her. The family is in absolute turmoil, and mother-in-law is threatening to disown her own son if he doesn't say Chris can come to our wedding. I would send Chris a letter in terms that he, as a lawyer, can understand. Explain to him that since he has voiced a condition unto which he would proceed with a civil suit, it would only be responsible of you to take action to limit your exposure to triggering that suit. This is simply a liability limiting action, and that there is no loss on his behalf due to there being no entitlement to the general public of attendance to this private event. NTA, because I would be damned if I would have anything to do with Chris after his insults and threat. You should, however, seek legal advice on the defamation in case he turns out to be a bigger a-hole than he already appears to be. Keep copies of the message from Chris. Apologize to Chris's ex and explain yourself. You and your fiance need to be on the same page, though, especially if you have kids and don't want Chris, your mother in law, around you. Your fiance needs to talk with his mom about insulting the ring. Sister in law, husband's older sister, and I gave birth to daughters around the same time. My daughter was born in early June, hers was born mid June. Her daughter marks 5 kids for sister in law and her husband. Our daughter marks mine and my husband's first child. A day after my daughter was born, my husband posted the announcement on his social media, and then sister in law commented asking what her actual name was, though the name was mentioned in the post. He replied for her to read it again and she would see the name. She did not reply after that. When she gave birth to her daughter, she did her own announcement and went on a small tangent about naming children and how much pride she and her husband took in giving their children real people names. The other day, we were at my husband's parents' house for a barbecue, and she went all in on saying how our daughter's name is a happy freak name and how we passed up the chance to give her a legitimate actual name. She said we could have used one of her kids' names since we were struggling so bad, clearly. For context, our daughter is Aura, and her kids are Edward, Martha, Dorothy, Lawrence, and Susan, her youngest. My husband told her we were very happy with our daughter's name, and we were happy she was happy with the names of her children, and we should all just be happy and move on. She told me that I was setting my daughter up for a hard life, how her name is going to label her forever, all kinds of stuff. Also went on about how grandma and grandpa names were so handsome, beautiful, and could carry a child throughout the rest of their life. She followed up by accusing me of not caring about my daughter. I told her she could keep her grandma names and I would keep my hippie freak names, and the conversation was over because I did not care to hear about it anymore. My husband and I left. She followed up with, how dare I say grandma names like there was something wrong with them. I sent her a text back that the hippie freak was too busy to engage further. I was mad at first and now am questioning my actions. The truth is, I don't like the names she chose for her kids. They are not my taste, and maybe my tone did relay that. I don't like how she behaved, but 2 wrongs, etc. So I need to ask. AITA? NTA. And to be honest, it's likely Dorothy will be made fun of for her name more than Aura. Poor kid is going to be told, I'll get you, my pretty, so much they will likely be sick of it from a very young age. NTA, she stepped over the line massively. Her names are yawn, boring. Perfectly reasonable names, but it's not okay to push one's opinions onto other people. Your daughter's name is beautiful. It's not too out there, and even if it was, it's your circus, your monkeys, so she can butt out. Oh, and your comments were not a-hole-ish. They were appropriately snarky. And can I say that I love that your husband wasn't allowing this BS and has your back. Pat him on the back for me. That's a great husband. NTA, her audacity is astounding. Her point is that choosing a name is special and to be chosen carefully, and then gives her kids generic names that many other people will have. Just doesn't seem too special to me unless they are family members' names. Plus, then add in that she should be allowed to be so openly judgmental about the name you've chosen, but you aren't allowed to make a small and obvious comment about her name choices. She is a hypocrite. So many people will give unsolicited parenting advice. I've learned to handle it by saying, oh my God, thank you so much for the unsolicited parenting advice, with a smile and dripping in sarcasm, then walk away. Their faces are pretty priceless and they normally avoid you for a while. Congratulations. And I love Aura. It's a beautiful name.